gravity, magnetism, and even a little telekinesis. These kinds of powers are super fun when you're playing a video game. You can push, pull, throw around, and just twist up enemies. It's one of those things that just feels good. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 insane gravity weapons in video games. Now this is just a quick disclaimer to let you know some of these things on this list aren't necessarily gravity based exactly, but the effects are more or less the same. That's really the important part here. So without further ado, at number 10, a few different weapons from the Mass Effect series, starting off with the Singularity Biotic Power. Basically what it does is create a gravitational force that sucks a bunch of enemies up into a concentrated area and basically makes it very easy to defeat them. I mean, they're floating right there, basically helpless. It's fun to use Singularity to lift around enemies and throw them like ragdolls, but even more powerful is the Black Storm Projector, which is a gun that's very similar, except what it does is slightly more scientific and painful sounding. What it does is encases some particles of matter in a mass increasing field, which for lack of a better explanation, affects their mass greatly. It basically creates a miniature black hole, which at first kind of explodes and then condenses, and it's one of those weapons that's really fun to use.
How do you like that, you sons of bitches?
At number 9 is Warframe's Magframe, which the Magframe is basically entirely about controlling magnetism. It has a couple of different powers. In my opinion, some really cool ones. First, I mean the obvious one, pulling enemies with magnetism. And that's pretty standard, of course. They get much cooler when you get to the next one, which is creating a magnetized field that attracts bullets towards enemies. You know, because bullets are metal and magnetism. But then you can also crush enemies with a powerful magnetic force. It's cool because it's actually one of the starting frames. That's of course kind of automatically cool because you don't have to wait to play around with all these great powers. And not everybody appreciates this thing, but you can really string together some cool stuff with it. I mean, nothing else on this list can send bullets back like this character. And let's just be frank, we couldn't get away with doing a list like this without talking about the Magframe. At number 8 is the Wizard from the Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, a name that gives away the game. The game's entirely about goofy physics and characters running into each other and general chaos brought about by not being actually totally accurate, let's say. Basically, there has to be units that are going to throw people around, or otherwise, what's the point? Games that are kind of intentionally broken need those little pushes, so to speak. One of the more useless, but at the same time hilarious units along these lines is the Wizard from the Peasant/Farmer faction. He's basically just Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. You know that fight with Saruman where they pushed each other around with their staffs? That's what this dude does. I mean, that's the main thing he does. He shoves enemies around, he sends soldiers flopping around. He basically doesn't do any damage, but I mean, he does incapacitate. He's kind of more a support character in that respect. With some proper planning, he can be pretty useful. Also, it's funny every time because it's Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. At number 7 is Saints Row 4's Singularity Gun. Now, Saints Row is basically a really over-the-top series, and with Saints Row 4, they just went nuts with it. I mean, it started as a Grand Theft Auto clone, and by 4, you're the President of the United States, and you're being held in an alien computer simulation after Earth is destroyed, and you're also Neo. There's tons of really ridiculous guns in here, like the dubstep gun, but if you really want to talk about a gravity gun, we're going to talk about the Singularity Gun. It just destroys everything. It sucks in cars, streetlights, pedestrians, everything that can be affected by the game's physics system gets sucked in. Like, it's funny because this game allows you to dress up incredibly dumb. Part of the appeal of it is that you can put on a really stupid costume and go out and suck things up in a gravity gun. And the kind of rampages that are possible with this gun are just different. Lots of fun. Seriously, they're fun to watch too if you have friends playing the game.
Here's the deal.
You need me to ravage you.
Maybe?
At number 6 is Ratchet and Clank Future Tools of Destruction's Tornado Launcher. This is another series that's known for ridiculous guns. Ratchet and Clank really, well, ratchets up the Clank? That's probably not a phrase that works here, but whatever. Yeah, what the Tornado Launcher does, which is particularly unique, is that it sucks enemies up before spitting them out, but there is a bit of an interesting twist: you actually control it. It's one of the very few games to use the gyros in the PlayStation 3 controller, so you can tilt the controller left or right to control the tornado's trajectory. It's not something that you will instantaneously understand. It requires just a little bit of practice. And also, it's not necessarily the most visually impressive of all the guns on this list, but it's really satisfying to use properly because it's a little bit chaotic. It does have the capability of dealing some pretty intense damage, so getting used to using it is pretty useful. And number 5 is the Wind Gun from Just Cause 4. So for being a giant open world sandbox, the Just Cause games actually don't have that many crazy weapons. Gadgets, sure, there's gadgets aplenty in Just Cause. But what makes the Wind Gun really stand out is that pretty much every weapon is a machine gun or a rocket launcher of some kind. And the Wind Gun is kind of basically useless in some respects. It kind of works only for very specific situations, and it doesn't do damage. But it is hilarious. You can use it to push enemies off cliffs or cause giant traffic jams. It's just utterly ridiculous and silly. And in some ways it's powerful, but really for specific uses. And number 4 is Gravity Rush 2's gravity shifting powers. Again, I don't think we could have gotten through this list without bringing up Gravity Rush 2. This gives you the ability to change the direction of gravity. So you can walk on walls, you can become light, you can become heavy. I mean, Gravity Rush 2 is kind of a really bizarre open world action game. And like I said, you control gravity, but not necessarily gravity that affects everyone, just your gravity. So you, Kat, the character with these abilities, can do a hell of a lot of stuff that affects you primarily, and you can affect some objects, but primarily you're standing on the sides of buildings, you're falling up, you're basically flying, but you can also create gravity fields and throw objects around. You can do a gravity slide by tilting gravity, which turns basically a flat surface into a slope. You can switch to lunar style gravity, which is obviously lower gravity. It also causes things in her direct vicinity to float. Jupiter style is the opposite, as you might expect, it makes you super heavy. And of course in Gravity Rush 2 there is a micro black hole. By now in this list you probably understand how those types of things work. It's basically the standard thing. It sucks in and destroys everything around it. Coming in at number 3 is Metal Gear Solid 4's Tanagashi rifle, or tornado gun. You might be able to figure out what it is based on that apt description. This one basically stands out for how strange it is. It seems like it's just some old Japanese musket that you can buy from Drebin. It feels pretty useless when you first use it. It's hard to aim, it takes a very long time to reload, it's loud. But it also has a 1/3 chance of creating a gigantic whirlwind effect that throws enemies and items all around the environment. Now, keeping in mind, Metal Gear isn't the most grounded game out there, but this is a type of thing that you wouldn't expect in it. It's just a little bit beyond the normal borders of what you would expect in MGS. So it's kind of bizarre that it has a magic musket in it. Also, it only works outside and in certain parts of the game, and spawns a ridiculous amount of items in the environment. It's extremely cool, it's just feels like it has no place. And yet, it's a Kojima game, so I actually have no questions for it. None that could probably be answered anyways. And number 2, the 0-point energy field manipulator from Half-Life 2, especially the powered-up version towards the end of the game, possibly the most famous gravity gun in gaming. Even if you don't know you've seen it, if you've never played Half-Life, you don't really know much about it, you've probably seen this somewhere on the internet. It basically allows you to grab items and objects in the environment and throw them. Some particularly good uses of that include explosive barrels or buzzsaws you can chuck at enemies. And really, the point of this gun is of course very cool, but it's also to show off the physics capabilities of the Source engine, which were definitely above average at the time. Forget that though, it's just great the whole game. It's so fun to use. And even better, like I said, at the end of it when it gets powered up when you enter the Citadel, because that gives you the ability to throw enemies. The Combine soldiers do not know what hits them when you throw one into another. It is fun. There's no other word for it. It's just pure fun. And finally, at number 1 is the Topsy-Turvy Bomb from Armed and Dangerous. There are a couple of other insane guns like the world's smallest black hole gun and the shark gun, but the Topsy-Turvy Bomb is perhaps one of the strangest, goofiest weapons in all of gaming. I mean, like I said, this is a game with the world's smallest black hole gun and the shark gun, and basically, this outshines both of them. This one's the most insane. How? How, you might ask? Well, Armed and Dangerous was made by Planet Moon Studios, which was a bunch of former Shiny employees, if you can recall, I don't know, Earthworm Jim or Enter the Matrix or even MDK. And in a lot of respects, this game kind of embodies a lot of the Shiny qualities. It's running and gunning with a bizarre sense of humor.
No, that's not necessary. Just stick it in there.
The Topsy-Turvy Bomb kind of just has to be seen to be believed. You basically stick a giant cork in the ground and the entire world flips upside down and the enemies fall into the sky. The satisfying aspect of it is when everything goes correct once again and everything comes plummeting back to the earth. It is entirely like a cartoon. You change the gravity of the entire world just to kill a few enemies. And for whatever reason, if an enemy is too far away, it doesn't affect them, which is obviously kind of funny. But if you look at the footage of this, I mean, it literally just looks like some goofy cartoon thing that somebody's like, yeah, you know, make the gravity go upside down, you know. Unfortunately, Planet Moon Studios closed in 2011, which sucks a lot because they were wildly creative and fun. But hey, it's fun to look back on this. What's your favorite out of these gravity weapons? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and click like if you enjoyed this video. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and do not forget to enable all notifications. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.